verbally. You're translating the moment.
It's good. What's the story behind Garot? Tell us much more.
It's a room part. About blog or the word, or I mean, there was a film festival in Germany having this name, this word as title, and I was so amazed by the name and by the transcription or by the description of a German trying to find an expression for this word, but it doesn't exist, that I just quoted his whole sentence and thought, okay, that's amazing. That's something that I think life is about, or at least my work is about, to find something that I'm not sure what it is, but I'm still longing to get to that. Maybe I'm longing to get there for all of my life, but this is like motif, or yeah.
I think there is a German expression for Karot, is the word Karot? Karot, yeah. Could it be Sehnsucht? I do not know it, but I think it could be desire without an object, or backwarded desire, like nostalgia, and I think this German Sehnsucht could put it into terms.
But if I put it in German,
yeah.
Sehnsucht nach etwas existenziell Wichtigem, aber Abwesendem. Noch schöner kannst du es auf dem Blog nachlesen.
So, yeah, but it could be a Sehnsucht without an object. Yeah. So, with lost objects.
But with an object that is existing but not present.
Yeah, okay.
But you felt the conception of Garot in Armenian? It's too interesting.
Oh yes, it's interesting.
Garot for us is different from Garot as yours.
Okay, so tell me yours. I mean,
but supposedly you know ours, as you said, it's not similar to the nostalgia.
You are right. It's something completely different. Yeah,
which is right. It's not similar to nostalgia.
Yeah.
Garot for us.
Who is us?
Especially
Armenians.
All Armenians.
I think so.
Eastern
I'm not
Armenians,
representing for
Western
Armenians, but
Armenians.
for Armenians, Garot is symbolizing. We used to be without homeland, without statehood for 6 centuries, and Garot is intensifying so many things for us.
Sehnsucht, you want us to see, no? You want to see someone, nothing else. Or you suchen to sehen.
Yeah, you had a question.
I have a question. I actually see more of a formal remark concerning your statement. I mean, the opposition, content versus form, image versus sound. I noticed that your German text didn't have nouns capitalized, and I remember my German teacher forcing me to capitalize, actually. And I noticed that your personal pronouns, ihr, sie, and all of those pronouns were capitalized. So, did you actually give signification to that? Did you actually try to destroy the form for the sake of eliciting the content, the image behind that?
Yeah. I mean, I generally prefer writing in small letters.
Why?
I came from poetry. At the moment, I'm writing more prose. Anyway, we have in German the nouns being capitalized, and this is good if you want to just scan a text to me. So I can easily find, okay, that's the nouns, that might be the content, I can skip that. If I read a text which has no capital letters, I'm in a way forced to go deeper into that. If I read a text which is ignoring the normal rules of capitalizing and just, for example, capitalizing the first word of the sentence and then certain words, this is hard. I read that recently, and that was really hard for me to read. I got really confused. Here the only thing is that the she part, the completely she part, is in small caps. So it's not completely capitalized, but it's capitalized in a way that the small caps aren't bigger than the than the other small letters, which I think is beautiful. So the first idea to do this was it's something I like and at the time as a typo, and then I thought it definitely fits. It definitely fits. If Friederike Mayröcker is writing about Yandel, she's always writing him in this way of small caps. This is something that I had in mind and that I found beautiful.
And is it only an aesthetical reason? Because in all those works of Viennese group and so on, there was this notion of democratization of language by writing every word in without capitals. It's not that political notion.
No.
Okay.
No. But for this text, I think it definitely makes sense to make it in the way it is, because the I isn't this strong. It doesn't have this big identity. It's looking for the identity, and it's looking to another person being capitalized as creating.
Yeah. One can force a psychoanalytical interpretation of this too, because there is a lot of voyeurism in this text. Because it's following a person without talking to her, or with less words than images. And so it could also be a reflection on voyeurism if you would force psychoanalytical interpretation. So this is this image-based thing in the text, even if it starts with an acoustic notion, this wood which makes some sounds. Yeah, it's coming from the sound to the image, or more image-based version of perception. So, but this would be an interpretation I could offer.
Okay. Which is interesting. I never thought about that, but
Yeah, in addition to what you said, one can notice that the eye does not look into the eyes of the she. They are not talking or communicating on one eye level. Yeah, it's what came to
Եթե օրինակ նայեք, իշուկն էլ կա, որը նախ դա հրատարակչի տեսակ նախաձեռնությունն է, նախ, բայց այս իշուկը խոնարհության նշան, բայց որը ունի թևեր, այսինքն էլի երկու ծայրերի միացման խոնարհության ուժի, որտեղ հանդիպում են, ու այդ էլի իջեցնել է, մեծատառերը փոքրացնել, էլի խոնարհվելու, շնորհակալ լինելու, մեծով չգրելու, մեծով չհարաբերվելու այդ փորձն է։
Yeah, Shafik and
Speaking of psychoanalysis, I want to ask a question that might have psychoanalytic implications. I'm just curious, what other poet's poem, if you can think of a single poem, you read and you thought to yourself, damn, I wish I wrote that. Not I like it, I think this is great, but you're like, I wish I wrote these words in that order. Which poem would that be?
There is a poem of William Butler Yeats that I like. Its title is A Crazed Girl. I would write that poem. I love it, but I love Whitman wholly. Yeah.
you're posing the question of Pierre Menard,
Yeah.
Borges.
Yeah.
Borges' story about Pierre Menard, who wrote his own Don Quixote. It is his Don Quixote.
I don't have a full poem. I'm reading and I'm finding a phrase or
Exactly.
some verses, and I think that's amazing. That's the best way to say this, or that's the best way to show this feeling, or whatever. But I rarely find something that I completely agree with.
Pigeonstone to me, and I think there are issues of translation on his work too. I do see that I can't help seeing this sort of trying to narrate something in a different language, or trying to follow someone so closely and to become that person, going back to Menard in a sense, to follow, being that language, transpose yourself into a new culture, don the other culture's dress and become someone else in a sense. Is there something that, are you both, am I seeing this wrongly, or is it my eye of the translator who's seeing translation in your work as a motif, as a theme?
Well, for my translation, I really did it word for word, but it was not that first step thing. I mean, when you are at the beginning and you can only do the word for word thing, it's the second step and one step back. I mean, it embraces the type of translation that is not word for word. I mean, it's a choice. That's what I'm trying to say. I mean, I had native speaker editors who could make the text more English, but I wanted it to sound more Armenian English, like to feel the Armenian thing there. And I just wanted the two texts to go parallel and be quite close, and to speak in an Armenian voice, but in English.
Close to Armenian. So you're bringing the English reader closer to the Armenian language in a sense.
I don't want the book to turn into an English version, but the English to come closer and to embrace the Armenian.
That's fine for people that are bilingual and speak Armenian and English, but the translation is not very good.
My translation, it's very word for word, and
yeah, it is.
yeah, but that's a choice.
There is more. Your poetry is more alive in Armenian.
Yeah, that's good. I'm happy about that.
No, but again, I mean that's for somebody else to translate.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to be
next time I'll
close
do that.
or similar or restricted by that.
Yeah.
It has to have a life of its own.
Yeah,
But
I'm sure.
as I was hearing the Armenian, it comes, but the English stays away.
I mean, in general, I'm dealing a lot with translation, and I'm dealing a lot with different languages. I'm German, so I speak standard German. I'm living in Switzerland, where people speak a dialect, which is in fact another language. And we do have a bilingual school. We have a country with 4 languages. So it's all about language which isn't my very language, which isn't the language that I was raised in. But at the same time, it's always present, this kind of, I would love to speak French like her, I would love to be able to speak English as good as he does, or something like this. But for translation, it's, the English translation, I'm no native speaker, I have no idea whether this is English, or whether this is German English. I would know, if I would translate that, it would be German English, and I don't want this. Not for this text for sure, because I don't think there's anything especially German that has to stay. There's something special in the language that I would love to stay in the translation, but I don't want it to be German in this way. Another thing which is very interesting at school for us is we're dealing in not too much, but at least a little with translation. And if we translate to German, we can do way more things. We can try to create a language which is quite close to the original, whereas the French people at my school don't have that freedom. So we in the German language, you could better force your editor to publish something which is unusual, but transmitting the idea or the speciality of the language that was in the original version than in French. French has to be standard book French, and that's the language you have to use, which I found very, very interesting.
I think just coming from the translation scene, there is a more and more movement coming to becoming more literal and also because sounding more strange. So coming back to your question again, we had the 1700s, 1800s, 1900s in Europe, especially France, where they had the Abels Infidel, the very fake translations, which sounded beautiful, but they really did not contain anything concrete of the original. Translators are now, literary translators are now moving more and more towards the literal and also towards the foreign text. And so they're really trying to do damage in the home culture at home in its own setting, to sort of not to import something in and package it so that it's easily sold to the native speaker. But they're trying to create a very foreign sensation. So in a sense, I really do like Anna's work because it does sort of jolt the natural, the standard English reader, because it's not how an American would sound or how American sentences would sound. It really does create a sensation where you appear in a foreign land. And in fact, poetry is foreign land, is foreign
Yeah, but
language,
that's,
it is.
Really, that's, I mean, throughout history or literature translation, I mean, there are translations many years ago that have stood of Persian poetry that is a bastion on its own. Why? Because it was translated of feeling, of making it tangible. It's not static, it's not up in the air, where you have to go to it. It came to you, it moved your emotions. The same way that the Armenian makes you travel. It travels, but the English I didn't find, and the same thing with I mean, there are books that have been translated 5, 6 times, but